After the fatal attack on legendary Pantera guitarist Dimebag Darrell, many looked for answers about the shooter's motive. Some in the metal scene pointed the finger at one figure, and his identity was the biggest bombshell of all. Darrell Lance Abbott had rock and roll rhythm from the beginning. Born in 1966 in Texas, his childhood was, for a rock star, pretty rock solid. Although his parents divorced in 1979, his family remained close-knit, and the young musician frequently visited his father for guitar lessons, soaking in his dad's musical expertise. On his 12th birthday, Darrell received a gift that would change his life forever: a Les Paul-style Hondo guitar and an amplifier. This gift sparked his lifelong love affair with the guitar, marking the beginning of his journey to becoming one of metal's most revered guitarists. Before he could even play a note, he had feverish dreams of becoming a rock star. At first, he tried his hand at the drums, but his older brother Vinnie Paul quickly outpaced him in that department. The competition between the brothers only brought them closer. Inspired by the Van Halen brothers, the Abbott duo became inseparable, forging a musical bond that would drive their future success. At just 14, Darrell entered a guitar contest in Dallas judged by none other than Dean Zielinski, the founder of Dean Guitars. Little did anyone know that Darrell was about to blow the audience away with his ear-melting sounds. He didn't just participate in the contest, he won it. In fact, he went on a guitar competition winning streak that upended the local music community. In 1981, the band that would catapult Darrell to heavy metal stardom was born. His brother was invited to join a band by his high school buddies, but there was a snag. Vinnie insisted that his younger brother join too. But despite shredding the competition, Vinnie's friends expressed doubt. At first, Pantera's members weren't sure about Darrell. Nevertheless, they relented when Vinnie wouldn't join without his younger brother. It wouldn't be long before his bandmates were begging Darrell to stay. Darrell shredded so hard for Pantera that other bands wanted to get a piece of him. But when Megadeth came knocking, he remembered that he owed his brother a favour. He came up with an ultimatum. He agreed to join Megadeth only if his brother could join too. Megadeth already had a drummer, so Darrell walked away from the opportunity of a lifetime. But he made history with Pantera anyway. Initially, Darrell shared lead guitar duties with Terry Glaze, but as Glaze recalled, within 6 months, Darrell morphed. He went from novice to master, playing iconic guitar solos like Eddie Van Halen's Eruption and Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train with ease. He quickly became the band's lead guitarist and shaped a whole new sound. Inspired by bands like Kiss, Van Halen and Judas Priest, early Pantera adopted a glam metal style. While Darrell always wanted to go heavier and focus on the music, he embraced the glam metal image, donning spandex, makeup and hairspray on stage. He even adopted the stage name Diamond Darrell, inspired by the Kiss song Black Diamond. At just 16, he contributed to Pantera's debut album, Metal Magic, in 1983. A Texas music magazine, Buddy, noted his unique solo style, saying his authoritative delivery broke conventional rules, showcasing his growing prowess as a guitarist. As Pantera evolved, the Abbott brothers yearned for a heavier sound, inspired by the likes of Metallica. But this didn't sit well with Terry Glaze, who admitted he disliked the heavier sound. Eventually, frustrated with the band's new direction, Glaze left. After struggling to find a replacement in 1986, the remaining Pantera members discovered Phil Anselmo. The band's bassist Rex Brown noted that with Anselmo in the band, Darrell's powerful riffs could finally shine. Having Darrell front and centre turned out to be a catalyst for the band. In July 1990, Pantera released Cowboys from Hell. The album marked a departure from their glam rock roots and boldly introduced a new signature sound, groove metal. Darrell's guitar work was central to the album, which the band described as power groove, a kind of a slower tempo heavy metal. Following the release of Cowboys from Hell, Pantera embarked on an intense tour, playing nearly 200 shows over 2 years. During this period, Darrell gained a reputation for his wild on-stage persona and heavy drinking, becoming a larger-than-life figure in the metal world. But there was one rock star cliché that he avoided. Rock stars are usually just as famous for their romantic escapades as they are for their on-stage antics, but Darrell was an exception to the rule. He met the only woman he ever loved when he was just 8 years old. He had grown up in the same neighbourhood as his longtime partner, Rita Haney, and they began officially dating in 1984. Pantera didn't rest on their laurels after Cowboys from Hell. In just 2 months they recorded their next album, Vulgar Display of Power, which they released in February of 1992. The album refined their groove metal sound and pushed the limits of heaviness, with Darrell's riffs and solos leading the charge. The music world took note. Vulgar Display of Power wasn't just a hit, it became a metal classic. In 2017, Rolling Stone ranked it number 10 on their list of 100 greatest metal albums of all time. In their review, they went out of their way to highlight Darrell's serrated rhythms and squealing solos as key elements in the album's enduring appeal. He decided that it was time to ditch his glam rock look in favour of something that matched his new, heavier sound. His new aesthetic consisted of his trademark dyed goatee and a razor blade pendant. The biggest change, however, was his stage name. He left Diamond Darrell behind and adopted the moniker Dimebag Darrell. Pantera's singer Phil Anselmo came up with the name as a reference to Darrell's rule of refusing more than a dime bag of cannabis at a time in the event that he got caught carrying the contraband. Pantera made history when they released Far Beyond Driven in 1994, the band's heaviest album yet, featuring ear-splitting solos from Darrell. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, especially impressive for a metal album. Critics hailed it as the heaviest album ever to top the charts, solidifying Pantera's place in metal history. But their success was also their undoing. The lead single from Far Beyond Driven, I'm Broken, was a deeply personal song for one of Darrell's bandmates. Anselmo's chronic back pain inspired the band to write the song, mirroring the singer's real struggles, the consequences of which were devastating. To numb the pain during the tour, Anselmo turned to heavy drinking and drugs. The band struggled with their lead singer's descent. They pulled away from Anselmo as his addiction worsened. He began travelling in a separate tour bus, isolating himself until just before showtime. He admitted to drinking an entire bottle of whiskey every night before a show, and often interrupted performances with erratic rants. The recording sessions for Pantera's next album, The Great Southern Trendkill, put the band's growing tensions on full display. Darrell and the other members of the band recorded their new songs at a makeshift studio in his backyard. Anselmo, on the other hand, recorded his vocals separately in New Orleans. On July 13, 1996, after a performance in Dallas, and with his addiction worsening, Anselmo overdosed and died. Miraculously, after 4 or 5 minutes, he came back to life. After such a lucky break, one would think it would bring the band closer together. For Darrell, however, the experience widened the rift between Anselmo and the rest of the band. With the tensions growing, it would be 4 years before Darrell and his bandmates managed to record another album. Vinnie Paul likened the recording sessions to pulling teeth, as Anselmo increasingly lost interest in playing backup vocals to Darrell's shredding on the guitar. During the troubled recording of Reinventing the Steel, the Abbott brothers faced a devastating personal blow. Their mother, Carolyn, was diagnosed with lung cancer, and she passed away just 6 weeks later, in September of '99. The loss hit Darrell especially hard, adding to the emotional weight he carried as the band fractured before him. Despite the troubles they faced, Pantera managed to finally release Reinventing the Steel in March of 2000, and what should have been a tour to remember turned into a bitter breakup. The band's bassist Rex Brown declared that he would be leaving Pantera. His decision left Darrell devastated, and after an initial hiatus, the Abbott brothers decided to start fresh with a whole new band, Damageplan. On April 8, 2004, a Pantera fan named Nathan Gale caused chaos at a Damageplan concert in Cincinnati, Ohio. He stormed the stage and caused $1,800 worth of damage before the authorities arrived to subdue him. Despite the disruption, the band chose not to press charges, wanting to avoid the hassle of returning to Cincinnati for court. Perhaps they should have. It could have saved Darrell's life. On December 8, 2004, Damageplan headlined a show in Columbus, Ohio. Club manager Rick Cotella noticed a man loitering outside during the opening acts. When he asked the man why he wasn't inside, his reply was ominous. He said he was waiting for Damageplan. Cotella had no idea that the mysterious man was Nathan Gale. By the time Darrell took the stage with Damageplan that night, it was already 10:15 p.m. The crowd had swelled to nearly double its original size, creating the perfect cover for a shocking tragedy. Outside in the parking lot, Gale scaled a 6-foot fence and entered the venue through an unmonitored door as Darrell and his band played their opening song. At 10:20, just minutes into the set, Gale, dressed in a hockey jersey and hooded sweatshirt, stormed the stage. He drew a gun, levelled it at Darrell, and fired 4 shots.
Darrell Abbott was a member of the band. He was 39 years old. He was one of the ones that was a victim.
Gale's attack was so swift and brutal that it caught everyone off guard. As the shots rang out, many in the crowd didn't understand the horror unfolding on stage right before their eyes. Some believed that they were witnessing a staged event. Others thought that the bangs from Gale's Beretta, muffled by the band's own ear-splitting music, were some kind of sound effect. The band's bassist, Joe Dameron, might have been the first one to realise what was actually happening. Only seconds before the first shot, Dameron believed he heard Gale shout something to Darrell about the breakup of Pantera, but couldn't make it out. Once everyone realised what happened, chaos broke out. Multiple people rushed the stage and attempted to take the gun from Gale, to no avail. He fired more rounds, taking the lives of 3 more people, before finally the authorities arrived and sent Gale to his own early grave. Dimebag Darrell was dead at just 38 years old. Following the tragic events of that day, Darrell's bandmates and fans were desperate for an explanation, and a sinister theory emerged. Fans pointed an accusatory finger at one of Pantera's past members, Anselmo. In an interview that came out shortly before that December 8th show, Anselmo, fuming about the Pantera breakup, made some twisted comments. He said that Darrell deserved to be beaten severely. Despite the chilling nature of the comments, investigators didn't believe that Gale had read the interview. That didn't stop others from blaming Anselmo for Darrell's demise. Dimebag Darrell's untimely and tragic death created an outpouring of grief and support in the music community. Thousands of fans turned up at his public memorial, and the guest list was full of rock legends. He was buried alongside his mother at a cemetery in Arlington, Texas. Gene Simmons of Kiss donated a Kiss casket for the burial, while Eddie Van Halen, one of Darrell's childhood heroes, made a tribute so profound that it brought the attendees to tears. Just weeks before he died, Darrell had met Eddie Van Halen and asked him for a replica of his iconic Bumblebee guitar. Moved by the request and the guitarist's tragic death, Van Halen did something extraordinary. He offered up the original Bumblebee guitar to be buried alongside Darrell. Van Halen said, "Dime was an original, and only an original deserves the original." If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more videos.